In this episode, we'll fall in love again with fitness. Helping us with this is a fitness and life coach. She's the founder of Fall in Love with Fitness podcast, the HIIT Dex app, that's HIT Dex app, and also the founder of Make Peace with Food. Welcome to the show, Sherry. How are you doing?
Thank you so much, Toby. I'm so happy to be here today, and I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day in Montreal, Canada. It is freakishly warm here. Normally we have a lot of snow, but the season's been very, very strange everywhere this year.
Wow, that's so nice to hear. I mean, here in Hamburg, Germany, it's quite cold, rainy today.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to be in the warmth of an apartment speaking with you right now. I'm looking forward to learning so much from you in this conversation, Sherry.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored.
Thank you. So, I mean, I was preparing for this conversation and I was like, yeah, I'm actually excited to be speaking with you because of your backstory. Like, you went through some experiences which transformed your life, and now you are helping other people out there to have a non-diet approach towards losing weight or becoming fit or even being happy with the way they are. So I would like us to start from the beginning. Like, would you like to share your story of how you were able to transform your body and also transform your entire outlook on life?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you again for that warm welcome. And Toby, one thing I'll say is that everything is about identity. And whatever we believe about ourselves, however we speak to ourselves, that becomes our truth. And so I've seen this a lot too when I would own a gym or when I start working with new clients. They actually begin to see progress the moment that their self-image changes or their self-concept, the way they start to view the capacity and the possibility that they're able to do. And that's really what's behind my story. I grew up super involved in sports. I was a child athlete. I was a tomboy. I was always competing against the boys. I always wanted to do more push-ups than them. I wanted to run faster than them. And I always had to prove that. And so even when I was growing up in middle school and elementary school, I actually was a competitive swimmer. And by the time I got to high school, I was now playing varsity sports and volleyball and basketball and track and field. And generally, I would always place first place in things, or I would be MVP of the team. And that was sort of, again, that was just my natural, who I always saw myself to be. And then one day when I was 16 years old, I was actually living in Lugano, Switzerland at the time. I was going downtown Lugano to buy Pearl Jam concert tickets because Pearl Jam was coming in town and they were my favorite band at the time. But my roommate and I went downtown to pick up tickets. We got our tickets. And then on the way back to the dorm room, I ended up actually getting hit by a car. I was trying to rush as fast as possible to catch the bus, and we had to check in at a certain time. Otherwise, there was consequences when you're in boarding school. And so I actually only woke up in the hospital. So I didn't actually really know what happened. And all of the details of the accident I actually got from my poor roommate who watched this whole thing. And what happened was I was crossing the street. I didn't see the car coming and I got hit and then flew all the way across to the other side of the street onto the sidewalk. And so when I first woke up in the hospital, I had a headache. I had a lot of scratches and abrasions on my face and everything else kind of looked okay. Yes, I was so sore. I was bruised. There was aches and pains. But then when I got back to basketball practice and I started training again a couple weeks later, I started to feel a very intense pain in my right glute. And that just kept intensifying and getting worse and worse and worse up until it got to the point where it was going all the way down my leg. It was shooting electrical pain. I could barely at this point go uphill. I couldn't shower on my own. I couldn't stand long enough to take my own shower and I needed assistance. And that's where they sent me back home to see my parents. And then I discovered that I had severely damaged my spine and I needed a back surgery. And so by the time I turned 17, I had my first back surgery. And it was at that point, Toby, that the doctors told me that I'm never allowed to do sports again, that any sort of physical activity would be off limits for me.
How did that make you feel? Like, you've been very active, competing in everything. So, no, you can't do this anymore. You can't compete anymore. You can't do this.
It was the worst day of my life. It was the worst news I've ever received in my life. I was so angry. I slammed my fist so hard at the doctor's office and I was just crying, just very, very upset. But I
Mm,
listened, I took the advice and I listened, and I found myself in a lot of chronic pain. Before that, the pain was just really in my leg, but then after the surgery, all the pain was in my back. In fact, my whole life was about my back pain, how long
mm,
I'd sit, where I'd sit, what kind of chair it was, what kind of car I would sit in. If I were to go to a social environment, I have to always ask the host, is there a place for me to lie down at some point? And even when I was in class, by the time I got to university, I would even tell my professors, look, there's going to be moments where you're going to see me actually go in the back and lie down because I literally can't sit for that long. So that's my world. And I was on pain medication all the time. And so when you're that age and you're really trying to connect, because that's a very important time of our lives where we connect socially with people, I ended up connecting in an environment that didn't really serve me. In fact, it
mm,
was a very partying environment. And I started spending my time with exactly the opposite type of sort of social people that I was surrounding myself with previously. And so
mm,
that led me on to negative habits that, again, didn't serve me. And by the time I was in my early 20s, I was probably 21 maybe at this point, and I just had this aha moment like, oh my gosh, like who is this person? This is not me. I never ever saw myself like this. I never ever saw myself doing all these things that I'm doing now. I always saw myself as this athlete. Like that's just my love. Like that's really what's in my heart. And so even though I was on pain medications every day, even though I was always in chronic pain, that was actually the first time I decided that I was going to sign up at a gym. So during that time, and by the time I had done that, I was actually in my master's degree studying chemistry of all things. And so I signed up in the gym. I had zero idea what to do at that point. I actually was just copying people. Like whatever I saw them do, I did. Someone did something with their legs, I did that. Someone else did this other machine, I did that. And I was just consistent for several months. I would just kept showing up and just kept doing stuff until I started to actually feel that I was able to come off my pain medication. I wasn't experiencing back pain anymore, and I was feeling stronger and more stable in my body. And then I bought a treadmill, even though my doctors had told me in the past that I'm not allowed to run and I should only resort to like walking on a treadmill. I purchased a treadmill and then I started to run 5 minutes at a time
mm,
until I was able to do a full hour outdoors. And it was at that moment, the day that I did that, I was like, all right, I'm done with chemistry. This is my life's calling. My life's mission is to really help people overcome any major injury or obstacle or adversity. Because if I can do this, and doctors told me that I couldn't do this, and my
mm.
body wouldn't be able to do this for me, I need to help other people do the same.
Yeah.
And it really just comes to this place where we have to be super accepting that there are challenges in life. We're all given different challenges, but it's up to us to decide what we're going to do with that challenge because we're all living our own story and we can decide how to write that story. There's certain things that happen, but so we still get to choose the ending. We still get to choose the meaning of that story.
Mm,
And for a long time, I was a victim of that story. I was a victim of my circumstances. I was incredibly overwhelmed and feeling always that I was in this chronic pain and I was a person with a bad back. But the moment I decided to shift into, no, I'm not a person with a bad back, I am an athlete, then everything changed. And that's essentially the identity shift that I help people get to identify with the athlete and to really adopt the athletic mindset, which many people think means really like, oh, I have to go play a professional sport. That's what it means,
mm,
that I'm an athlete if I, make millions of dollars every year and I'm on TV and, I've got really nice jerseys and cars and all these things. And it's really not the case. If we observe athletes, one thing we'll always notice is that they are always so determined. They have high belief in themselves. They
mm,
believe things before they even achieve it. That's the first thing. And that's really the key. If you believe it, you can achieve it. And then the second thing is the athlete is not focused on their appearance. That's not actually why they show up. The way that they look, yes, we admire that. It's beautiful and we appreciate that. However, this is a side effect of all the things that they're actually doing. So showing up for practice, being consistent, really focusing on performance, really fueling their body with nutrition to support their training, to support their recovery from training, to improve their sleep, turning down social environments, knowing that it's going to interfere with their practice or their competition. And so the moment that we shift into that mindset and we no longer just look at ourselves in the mirror, just do things for what happens in the mirror, but instead do things for how it makes us feel, how empowering it is, how this
Mm.
becomes a natural part of our life, then the side effect of that will be all of the results that we are trying to achieve so badly.
Oh yeah. Wow. Thanks so much for sharing that. Yes. It starts with our mind and where we, what we believe in, what we believe in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey there, podcast enthusiasts. Are you ready to add a little sparkle to your day? If you're loving the insightful conversations and captivating stories on Mirror Talk Podcast, here's a friendly nudge to hit that subscribe button. By subscribing, you'll never miss out on the empowering messages and thought provoking discussions we bring to your ears. But wait, there's more. We're all about spreading positivity and inspiration, and you can be a part of it too. How? By sharing the love with your friends and family. Share this episode with your loved ones, and let's create a ripple effect of empowerment and growth together. And hey, if you've been enjoying what you hear, why not take a moment to leave us a glowing 5-star review? Your feedback fuels our passion to keep delivering content that resonates with you. So hit that subscribe button, share the love, and leave us a review. Let's keep the conversation going and spread the Mirror Talk magic far and wide. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, your support means the world to us.
Yeah.
I'd like you to go a bit deeper into that a bit. Like, you talked about the athletes, like, having the athlete's mindset. So can you like walk us through some of the habits, like habits of a successful athlete that we could also use for ourselves to transform our lives, transform our body also?
So good. So one of the first things that I'll say is our environment basically dictates our success. Whatever our environment is, and I'm not just talking about our physical environment, because we have a physical environment, we have a social environment, and we also have environments that help us grow, right?
Mm,
And
mm,
so if we're able to make sure that our environment is going to support our success, that already gives us a much easier path towards what it is we're wanting to move towards. So if, for example, I am focusing on eating more whole foods, and yet in my environment, I keep adding every single time I do my groceries, foods that don't serve me, that's always going to be a point of conflict. Or if I'm spending time with people who keep telling me, oh, it's not going to work, just sit down and just rest and stay with me, you don't have to do this, then also that's not going to be conducive to my growth and my personal development. And so environment is first, auditing your environment, making sure that you are immersing yourself with people who are going to fuel you and not who will dim your light. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, instead of being outcome focused, so instead of focusing on this is what I want to achieve, let's instead be person focused. And so here's what that means. If, for example, you're listening to this and your goal this year is to release 30 pounds.
mm,
So instead of focusing on releasing 30 pounds, I'm going to challenge you to focus on becoming the person who's 30 pounds lighter. And that is a very big transformation, because when we're focused on just the outcome, then it doesn't really matter how we get there. And in
mm.
fact, the way that our brain actually thinks about this, our psyche thinks about this, is the moment this happens, I'm done. I don't have to work anymore. It's like
Yeah.
tax season, right? So much work, so much effort. And the moment that we submit off all of our papers to our accountant, that's it. We stop thinking about it. And so when we're focused on a weight loss goal, then that's essentially what always ends up happening. And then finally, also think about every habit that you actually incorporate into your life as being enjoyable and sustainable. And so instead of, again, trying these fad diets that are promising great results, or comparing even yourself with somebody who's been doing something for much, much, much longer than you, always think about, okay, I'm going to start with one little thing. The goal is always to become 1% better every single day. So what this means is I'm going to start with this one goal, with this one little teeny tiny habit, which is something like I'm going to drink more water. I'm going to stop watching TV and being on my screens a few hours before bed. Maybe I'll even stop eating a few hours before bed so that I can optimize my sleep. So choose one small habit, commit to that. The moment you master that one, then add on the next one. And now, if it's something that doesn't feel like you're going to enjoy it, that it's always going to feel like it's a punishment every time you do it, For example, for me, I don't eat broccoli. I don't enjoy broccoli. I don't want to have broccoli around me and in my meals because I don't
Mm.
enjoy it. So for me, that's not something that I actually feel like eating. And so the same thing will apply here. If you enjoy it, it can become sustainable. And if it's not this big, huge, burdening thing, it'll also become sustainable. So whatever habit you decide to apply, just feel connected to it and get excited about it. And finally, along those notes too, always focus on consistency first and then intensity, which means before you start challenging yourself to showing up every single day or going from 1 kilometer run to 10, just
Mm.
focus on very, very small increments and stay consistent, because it's actually consistency that gives us a result in anything we do in our life, not just around our health and fitness. And once you feel comfortable and it's sustainable and you're consistent, then you can add the intensity, where you can add in more time, you can add in more frequency, or you can add in more load.
Oh yeah. Wow, that's powerful. That's very powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Like, you know, when you want to like adapt a new habit, for example, ensure that it's something that's enjoyable, and don't start a massive thing. Take it 1% at a time minimum, and also ensure that, you know, whenever you want to start or cultivate a new habit, ensure that it is in alignment with what, or who you want to become, in life. Yeah. Wow, that speaks so deeply to me, like beyond measure. So I'm like, wow. Yeah. And make sure it's enjoyable. The whole journey should be enjoyable to you too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, it's similar, Toby, to having, let's say, a messy house. Okay.
Mm.
So if your house is super messy, let's say, and all your closets are unorganized, right? It's like, oh my God, where do I even begin? This is so overwhelming. Like, oh, right. If you try to do it all in one day, I don't know. I don't know about you, but if I have to do that all in one day, I'm like, I'm done. I give up. Who cares? No way.
Mm.
So instead, it's sort of akin to choosing one little task to do. All right. Today I'm starting with this bedroom, and then tomorrow I'll do this closet. And then the day after, I'm going to do the kitchen. And then the day after that. So it feels like it's work, but there's a lot of focus, and you're focusing on one thing at a time. The moment that's done, move on to the next thing. Before you know it, your whole house is organized, it's gorgeous, it's clean, and now you just have to maintain. And as we know, maintenance is much, much easier. You just have to stick to the routine. You just have to stay consistent. And so view also your goals almost in the same way. Just focus on one thing and then make it fun, make it enjoyable. And don't forget to reward yourself. Don't forget to celebrate, because celebration reinforces that positive feeling and starts to connect that positive emotion with the thing that you're doing. Because maybe in the past, every time you thought about exercising, it was like, oh gosh, I still have to shower, I have to wash my hair, I'm in a sweat, it's so much time. And there's all these negative feelings associated with that activity. But if we can shift that emotion, attach a positive emotion, a high vibration emotion to the thing that you're doing, you're going to stay consistent. In our decision making in life, we always try to move away from something that feels painful and then move towards something that is pleasurable. And so it's the same way. And now all we have to do is reassign the pleasure points and the painful points. So if in the past, maybe it felt painful, the idea of exercise, because I hate it and I really don't like what I'm doing, and oh my gosh, right? Maybe we can find something that we enjoy, and now that becomes pleasurable. And then even the thought about the reward, how you're going to reward yourself, and
Mm.
more importantly, the positive benefits that you're going to get. And sometimes it's harder to focus on these positive benefits because they're long term, right? I'm going to do this for my longevity. Okay, but I really actually want to see immediate results. And the immediate results that we can see is the feeling good, the feeling confident, the having more energy, the feeling that you are very empowered in all the areas of your life. And so maybe also start to incorporate ways that you can celebrate. And as a final note, one of the things that I generally do is I like to kind of have this little bank account for the things that I want to maybe work towards. So the last thing that I purchased for myself was a Remarkable. I don't know if you know what that is. It's like that electronic notepad. And
Yeah.
so I had like a little goal that I was working towards. And
Mm.
so instead of just allowing myself to just purchase it upright and just outright, what I did instead is every time I worked a little bit towards that goal, I put in $20 in the account to go towards the remarkable. And that was my reward. It just felt so good. Like, yay, all right, I can't wait. I'm excited to get my remarkable. And it was all just these positively enforced emotions. And so maybe you could also get inspired around that idea and think about something that you also want to move towards as a reward.
Yeah, I love that. I love that award system, basically. Yeah, it helps you to even want to become better, want to do more, achieve more, actually, because once you can be thankful and grateful for a little thing, then you start working towards bigger things also, or bigger things come your way also. Yeah. Yes. I really love us to talk about your, anti-diet approach also, because a lot of people are on this weight loss journey, and maybe that's their goal. That's who they want to become. Like you said earlier, don't just set the goal, become that person that's, gets that goal. So there are a lot of people out there that want to become that, weight loss person, or they want to become that slim, or I don't know, fit person, basically. I don't know how to describe that. So I would just like you to like tell us about the anti-diet approach that, rewires the brain's relationship with food to naturally release body weight struggles forever. Like, how does that work?
So good. Yeah. So the first thing is, I want to say that anti-diet doesn't mean, hey, eat whatever you want and, that you can have as much junk food as you want, because
Mm.
there's still this fine balance between understanding the impact of processed foods and refined foods, really foods that are man-made that the body doesn't recognize, and then allowing yourself to create a natural balance between that. And then also having foods that do serve you, foods that the body recognizes and can utilize and actually rebuild itself from. And so we refer to these foods as whole foods. And it's not about we're not allowed to eat this and we should be eating that. There's no shoulds. However, what we want to do is move towards eating more of the foods that serve us and then less of the foods that don't, because you're going to start to actually notice how they impact you. And so, again, the reason I'm adding this in is because you may be scrolling on social media and you might see people talking about intuitive eating and being anti-diet. And they're suggesting to you that this means have as many donuts as you want for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And that's what anti-diet means. No, because that is actually the other extreme. And so we don't want to
Mm.
be on either sides of the extremes. In fact, it's actually really all about listening to your body and cueing into these body's cues. And so when we are very, very restrictive, there's actually an impact and an effect that we have on the nervous system that will always drive us to start to obsess about the foods that we restrict. And we have to ask ourselves, those who've started dieting or those who are dieting, why are they still dieting? Why haven't they gotten success? And in fact, studies show over and over and over again that those who diet end up actually putting on more weight than they ever even wanted to release in the long run.
Mm.
So this is staggering. And the other thing too is it's interesting how we always try to control our food or restrict our food to release weight. And yet we also say that repeating the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result, is called insanity. And so I've seen this throughout my entire career, really, people starting to go on a diet and then seeing temporary results because they are temporary. And most of them are quite restrictive. Coming back to the conversation we were having earlier, they're not sustainable. And then again, coming back to the conversation earlier, the moment that they achieve their goals, they stop working. And so diets only teach us to be strict for a short amount of time. And then diets also confuse us because almost every diet is backed by science. So remember, Toby, when I first got into the health and fitness space, my background is in chemistry. And so I always actually love for scientific proof behind things and research for me to really feel like, okay, this is viable, this is acceptable information. But when I started actually researching diets, and I got into diets when I first actually started my fitness career, because I wanted to find the right way to eat so that I can share that with my clients. And so when I first started my journey, everyone was talking about low-fat diets. And so that's what we did. So then I just cut all fats practically out of my diet. And then after that, we were talking about calorie counting. And so I'm like, all right, that's what we have to do. Like, this is how much weight you want to lose or where you want to maintain. So stay with your calories and let's calculate everything. And then after that, I heard about Atkins. And now this guy named Atkins is saying that fats are really good and meat is really good. And then carbohydrates are very bad. Okay, let's bring back the fats then. So then we brought back the fats into our diet. Then I joined the CrossFit world and I opened CrossFit gyms. Then everybody was talking about paleo. So then I started to eat like a caveman. And then after that, it was a zone diet. Then after that, it was keto. And then after that, and it just kept going on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
And again, every single one has great science to prove why it's the right way to eat. And so that left me actually very, very confused and created a very disordered relationship with food. Every single week I had different rules around food. And I don't know, it just felt very uncomfortable. Should I be eating this? I felt lots of guilt and lots of shame. And so that's actually what we tend to see when we overly diet. You know, when we're born, we have this innate capacity to ask for food when it's time to eat and then to stop eating when we're full. This is a natural mechanism that we have that gauges our hunger, that tells us how much food and nutrients that we need. And the body doesn't count calories, it counts nutrients. And so for the body, 50 calories coming from junk food or refined food is not equivalent to 50 calories coming from fruits or vegetables or other whole foods. And so we have to get into this place where we're actually wanting to look at the body as a more intricate machine instead of it just being a calorie counter, because it doesn't work that way. And so instead, what we actually want to, again, look at is how can we get into those natural cues? How can we get into those cues that we were actually born with, the ones that tell us when to eat and how much we need and when to stop? And so by dieting over and over and over and over again, we actually tend to override these cues, which is one of the reasons why it results in excess weight gain afterwards, because we no longer are listening to our bodies. We're following what this paper is telling us. We're hungry all the time. We're wanting foods that we're denying our body from. And so we're not listening to our body when it's hungry. And we tend to also not know when we're full, or even listen to our body if it feels like it's not full. Because again, we're watching what this app is telling us or what this diet plan is telling us. And so really the idea also is to get away from unwanted eating behaviors. And so when we diet and when we restrict, anytime that we cut calories for a prolonged period of time, and generally it takes about 72 hours for there to be a response in the metabolism. But after 72 hours of going into a calorie deficit, this part of the nervous system that I call protection mode, and some of us may know it as sympathetic nervous system state or fight or flight response. After 3 days of restricting our caloric intake, that kicks in. And as soon as that kicks in, our metabolism slows down, because this part of the nervous system is responsible for only one thing. And so lovingly, it is responsible for survival. And so it'll do everything it possibly can to make sure that you can survive. And so the body's message is, oh my goodness, we're in a famine. There's not enough food. We have to do something. So let's slow down the metabolism. Let's make it harder to release the stored body fat. We need it to survive. So you'll notice that it's hard to release weight. Your body's getting stubborn. It's acting against you instead of with you. You'll also notice that you feel more tired and maybe lethargic because your body's heavy. Your body doesn't want you to burn calories. It's like, sit on the couch. Oh, I don't feel like doing things. And then the other thing also that happens is we have a high craving for foods that will give us an immediate source of energy. So that's why when we over restrict, suddenly we're craving junk food, we're craving sugar, we're dreaming about it, we're obsessing about it. Anything that we deny ourselves creates a reward system in the brain. And so this is driven by a dopamine response, and it makes us desire this food even more and more and more. It's like when we were kids growing up and our parents said, don't do this, don't do that, don't touch this. It just made us want to do it more, right?
Exactly.
So the body's responding in the same way. And so after multiple cycles of dieting, Toby, what we end up seeing is people develop unwanted eating behavior, binge eating, emotional eating, stress eating, nighttime snacking, all because they've created this protection mode response in the body, and it's always driving them to crave foods, and not just any foods, but foods that can give them an immediate source of energy. And unfortunately, that tends to be the junk food, the refined foods, and the processed foods.
Yeah. When you were talking about that, I was just thinking about fasting. It's a lot of us fast, I mean, religiously and also as a means of dieting also. But I would just like to know what's your intake on that is like. What's your opinion on fasting and what you just described right now about, after 3 days, your metabolism just reduces and your body wants to just save everything because it believes that we are in a famine.
Yeah, so good. So I'm actually fasting right now, to be honest, and I practice intermittent fasting. It's one of the most powerful tools. It's one of the most powerful tools for health and for healing and for longevity. The side effect of intermittent fasting is releasing weight. Okay. Now, I want to just back up a moment and talk about the nervous system, because this is really, really important. And this is really what creates the success around intermittent fasting, or maybe even harm. And so I spoke a little bit about the nervous system earlier. And so we have the autonomic nervous system, and it's divided into two sections. And we have the sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, or what I call again, protection mode. And then we have the parasympathetic, which is safety mode, which is rest and digest. Now, if we are in protection mode and doing intermittent fasting, because when we're in protection mode, the thoughts that we are generally experiencing the most are worrying thoughts. They're thoughts that bring up worry. They are thoughts that are focused on worst case scenarios. They're thoughts that are very stressful. They're thoughts that create a lot of anxiety. And again, we, with our thoughts, trigger protection mode. And so we're kind of stuck in this loop where the thoughts trigger protection mode triggers these thoughts again. And so when we have these thoughts, the emotions that we're going to experience, because that's how we actually have emotions. We have emotions from thoughts. We don't just have emotions randomly. We have to have a thought. It's either a high vibration thought or a low vibration thought. It's either a positive thought or maybe a negative thought. And that's going to dictate the emotion, right? I'm not going to be all joyful, but then also feel depressed, right? That those don't really match. I'm not going to have these thoughts and then feel that. And so when we are in protection mode and we're triggering all of these anxious, stressful responses, then again, when we deprive ourselves from food, so if we try intermittent fasting, it doesn't end up being a fasting. It ends up being a restrict binge cycle. And we tend to overeat. And so I've seen this often. People who are struggling with unwanted eating behaviors, they'll try intermittent fasting, and it actually triggers their unwanted eating behavior even more. And so instead of doing that, we want to make sure that we are actually in safety mode if we're going to be trying intermittent fasting. And so safety mode, or parasympathetic, comes with the opposite thoughts and emotions that we have when we're in protection mode. So we're feeling gratitude, we're relaxed, we're calm, we're feeling appreciation, we're feeling love, we're feeling joy. And when we're feeling all these things and focusing on thoughts that are making us feel all these things, and then we do intermittent fasting, the body's responding in a very different way. The body's healing itself. Rest and digest. That's exactly what it's doing. And so again, this is so, so important. And I just want to bring up one of the greatest things that triggers protection mode. So we know that when we are in sympathetic nervous state, is generally due to a response of feeling unsafe in our environment. And we feel unsafe in our environment when there's something traumatic happening. This could be sexual trauma, this could be verbal trauma, this could be physical trauma. But food scarcity is actually also trauma. And so when we deny ourselves food by imposing food scarcity, because we've decided that we're going to restrict, we're going to diet, we need to lose weight, we don't like how we look, we need to fix ourselves in some way, that triggers protection mode, just in the same way as actual food scarcity would. And actual food scarcity is really that we don't have food. And if truly we didn't have food, and we have to also acknowledge this, because there are people right now on the planet who go every single day without food. And that's very traumatic for them. That's a very scary place to be, not knowing when you're going to get your next meal. But when we diet, we actually recreate that exact same pattern in our brain. And so if I'm going to try intermittent fasting, because my goal with intermittent fasting is I got to lose weight. I can't stand my body. I'm so gross. I'm disgusting. Look at me. This is disgusting. Oh my God, that change. Oh my God, just so stressful. Everything I eat is so stressful. I'm just constantly anxious. All these thoughts and emotions are going to trigger me into protection mode. And then I'm going to notice at the moment I can finally break my fast, I don't just have my normal meal. I'm now out of control around food.
Yeah, your body's going to say, "Oh, food is now available in excess. Let me consume everything before there's famine
100%.
again."
Yeah, you got it. Oh my goodness, spot on. Yes.
Yeah, wow. So we have to work on our mind and our thoughts also. And I like what you said. Like before you start this kind of fasting, you first have to put yourself in that state, or be in that state of being joyous. Your thoughts are like focused on positive things, and then your body will be able to just relax, rest, and digest, and rejuvenate itself also.
Yeah. And Toby, this is going to sound so silly and so overly simplified, but it's as simple as loving yourself through it. How
Mm.
many people, honestly, do you hear love themselves through their weight loss journey? I don't hear a lot. I've been in this space for almost 25 years.
Mm.
Most people, New Year's resolution, or they're about to turn 40 or 50 or 60, whatever it is, all of a sudden they need to change their body because they actually don't love themselves. In fact, the way that they speak to themselves, they would never even accept someone else to speak to them in that way. Yet
Mm.
this is what's going on all day, going on all day, going on all day. And so it's okay that you're in a position right now where you want to make a change around your health. In fact, that's so exciting. Congratulate yourself for that. That's really great. But why can't it be that and you're also moving lovingly towards where it is that you want to go? Instead
Yeah.
of, oh, I got it, and my health is terrible. Why did I do this? How did I let myself get like this? Why? What's wrong with me? And
Mm.
I got to do something about it, right? That is so stressful. You're already creating that anxiety in your own body. You're creating that stress around your health and fitness journey. So every single time there's a conversation or a thought about exercising or a thought about changing your physical body, it becomes incredibly stressful for you.
Yeah.
And so starting off every single day, and one little exercise that I've found is so incredibly powerful. And this is so incredibly powerful, especially for women who for many, many years have spent a lot of time in negative self-talk. But what would happen if every morning you would start your day standing completely naked in front of the mirror and just loving yourself, loving every square inch of your body, and loving yourself for the salad that you chose, loving yourself for the glass of water that you just drank, loving yourself for the 5-minute walk that you went on, loving yourself for removing toxic people out of your life. And the more you love yourself through that, you are shifting into safety mode.
Mhm. I love that. Yeah. Shed those weights, not just in your body physically, but also your mind, environment, everywhere. Yeah. We need to go on diet basically, or weight loss basically in our real life, not just in our meal and food that we eat. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Shed the baggages. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I believe that once we're able to do all of these things, our body becomes this fat burning machine basically, because
Yes.
our mindset is already fixed on who we want to become, and before we know it, we become that person. And whatever we eat, as long as we're eating it according to what our body needs at the moment, and we are being conscious and intentional with our feeding, then we'll be able to eat the right things, make right choices when it comes to food, and live our best life ever, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And the most important component is really to shift your body into safety mode. Remembering that number one, if you reduce your calories and you're always restricting calories, that you're going to trigger protection mode and food obsession in general. And then number two, manage your cortisol level. That's your stress hormone. And that is the hormone, one of them alongside with adrenaline, that's released during protection mode. And cortisol's job is to make sure that you conserve energy and to get more energy, which is why you'll have more sugar cravings. And then number three, manage your insulin levels. Managing your insulin levels is so important. Insulin is the storage hormone. It
Mm.
is responsible for not only storing carbohydrates, but also excess calories that we take in from food and converting that into fat. And insulin also prevents any release of fat from fat cells. And so if we're able to manage our insulin by always choosing whole foods, by always maybe trying to complete our meal so that when we eat a full meal, we feel satisfied. We don't feel like we need to nibble all day long. Because every time we eat and we nibble food all day long and have little micro snacks all day, we're constantly releasing insulin, putting ourselves in fat storage mode. And then finally, if you have trauma, if you have a lot of maybe pain in your life, and this seems to be somewhere where you're constantly stuck, and it's maybe driving you to look for a coping mechanism, either through food or drugs or other substances, then also we need to address that. And that's actually the work that we do in our program, Make Peace with Food, is we help women shift their nervous system from protection mode to safety mode. And through this response, they naturally release weight, and it becomes a very exciting journey.
Yeah. Move from protection mode to safety mode. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Wow, I've learned a lot from you, Sherry, in this conversation, and there are a lot of things I'm going to take along for myself to improve myself, improve my fitness journey also. For people out there who still like to reach out to you, get across to you, maybe listen more to your podcast, maybe make use of the Deck app, for example, or just sign up for Make Peace with Food program also. What's the best way to connect with you? What's the best way to work with you?
Well, thank you so much, Toby. I just want to say and honor you so much for your beautiful space that you've created here and for sharing this message and for the work that you do. There's so much love and passion coming out of you. It's just beautiful to be in this resonance with you.
Thank you.
So if anybody wanted to reach out, they can find me on Instagram at Sherry Shaban Fitness, and you can message me from there. And I actually would love to extend the offer to a 90-day free premium subscription on the HitDex app. All you'll have to do is just download that, and then you can message me, and I'm going to grant you 3 months free on the HitDex app. And then if anybody is considering maybe working and overcoming their unwanted eating behaviors, then if you head on over to makepeacewithfood.com, there's a free workbook download for you to get you started on your journey and really learning how to make peace with food.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to place the link to your website in the show note of this episode. So I encourage everyone out there to reach out to you. Go to the website, makefoodwithpeace.com. Read more about, Sherry, read more about the program and the services that she offers. And also listen to the podcast, Fall in Love with Fitness podcast also. That would be very awesome. Thank you so much, Sherry, for this wonderful time speaking with you and everything I learned from you. I truly, truly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Toby. The pleasure's all mine.